Okay, next set of definitions, roles and functions. Roles are a set of responsibilities. They are defined in a process. They are assigned to a person or team, and one person or team may have multiple roles. So, as we go through this activity, today and tomorrow, we'll talk about roles and we'll talk about having a service management owner and having a risk owner and having a CSI process manager. And you may look at it like, okay, these 40 roles that you set out to me. You don't have to have 40 people, but all of these people could wear different hats, which is oftentimes the case in some of these organizations. The takeaway is that someone is covering this. Someone's covering quality assurance, someone's covering incident management. And so people take on and off hats as they have the capacity to do so. Um, and we just work from there. So a role is a set of responsibilities. It's defined in a process assigned to a person or a team, and one person or team may have multiple roles. Functions are different. They are units of the organization. They're specialized to perform certain types of work. They are responsible for specific outcomes, and they will be handled by a group of people or team using their tools and performing one or more process. So functions could be accounting, for instance. Typically, the accounting team or the accounting function or the accounting department, they only do accounting work. That's it. They're there to perform a specialized type of work. They're responsible for specific outcomes, and they use tools and perform one or more process. They have several different processes they run for different reports and reporting externally to the government, paperwork they file, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is an example of a function. CCB or CAB is another type of function. It's specialized to perform a specific type of work. They're responsible for specific outcomes. They vote on different things. They may use one or more process, for instance.
So what is an example of a process that what is the process roles function relationship? Is it we have
process role function relationship?
Yeah, so functions are units of the organization. Can a function have a role within a process?
Yes, so a function can have a role. So for instance, you could have senior level management, right? Those are a group of people in an organization. Their function could be to be, what did I say they were? Vice presidents? Vice presidents of an organization. They perform specific type of work. They have a defined work that they all do. They're responsible for specific outcomes. They use one or more process. However, those vice presidents could also all serve on an advisory board, right? That could be one of their roles. They could also participate in business development activities. So they could be business development writers or editors. So that could be another role that they play. So the functions could be different, could also participate in switching hats and being different roles.
So subsets of the functions can hold roles.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, RACI. Are you familiar with RACI?
Nope.
Model entry. Okay. So RACI is an acronym. It helps to define organizational structure, which we were just talking about. Let me make sure. I'm gonna have to show you one of those. Okay. I'm gonna go through explaining this, and then I'm gonna show you an example of a RACI model.
Okay.
Okay, so the RACI helps to define organizational structure. The R stands for responsible. That is the person that's doing the work, the individual who actually completes the task, right? So sometimes these are the analysts, these are your technicians, these are the people that are actually the busy bees doing the work. A stands for accountable. That person is the owner. So when we talk about, well, who owns the risk management process? Who owns the service desk? This is the person who's ultimately responsible. So if all hell breaks loose, we missed our SLAs, no one came into work, it doesn't matter because who's ultimately accountable? Who owns this function or this process? The rule for a RACI model is that you can only have one person accountable for each task. And that person has yes or no authority and veto power. So not only is this person ultimately responsible, they are the person that ultimately has the authority and can say yes or no to any type of suggestion or any type of decision that's made. C stands for consulted, and these are the individuals who are consulted prior to a decision or an action. Sometimes these could be the most senior person in the organization or on a team, or an external consultant, or an old customer, someone who has the knowledge and the information that the organization needs in order to make a more informed decision. They're not responsible for doing anything. They're not accountable for anything. They're just consulted because they have a lot of knowledge or some type of information that the organization needs to leverage. I stands for informed. These are the people that are kept in the loop. So think of this as your CC line in an email, right? People that you want to keep informed, but you don't expect them to really do anything with that information unless it's necessary. So these are the people who need to be informed after a decision or task is taken. It incorporates one-way communication. So you just always push information to them, and it's up to them to use that information as they need it. But your job is to make sure people get the right information. Um, and then they receive information about process execution and quality. So these, once again, this would be your CC line on an email. These could be managers or mid-level managers. These could be people in other functions to say, hey, this is coming down the pipe. This has nothing to do with you now. It's not actionable, but you may need to know just so that you can, update your team or have this somewhere documented in a planning document or something. So that's how the RACI is structured. The whole point of a RACI is to prevent collisions. So oftentimes when we have projects or when we have processes that are implemented, we make assumptions about who's doing what. Oh, I thought I was the project manager because I've been working on this project for 20 years. And I thought I was responsible for sending this report because I've always done it. And so the RACI helps to prevent those types of communication gaps. Let's see, give me one
I love
moment.
this.
And it's really, really beneficial when executed, because
I can think of about 30 things that are happening right now where if this had just been defined at the front of the project or the front of, one of the big things we do are product launches, and each of those is a project in itself. But if this stuff had been defined like right at the beginning, there would have been so many avoided last minute oh shit moments.
Yeah, yes. And that typically is what happens. Because someone will get really smart and sassy, it's like, oh, I thought this or I thought that. And it doesn't really matter what you thought. It just all matters what the chart says. Can you see the chart okay? My
Yes.
screen? Okay. So this is very, very basic stuff. But RACIs are typically established early on, and they're also revisited as the organization changes, right? So maybe everyone up here won't be on the contract for 3 years. So you may have to sub them out. And sometimes on the RACI matrices, you won't see specific names, but you may see roles. So this Jeff may actually be the project manager. So instead of having the names, you could have project manager. So whoever fills that role will always be responsible for these things. It just depends on how you want to set it up. But you would have your activity listed here. And sometimes they break down into sub-activities or processes. And then you would simply go through the activity of identifying who will do what, who's going to be responsible, who's going to be accountable, who's going to be informed, and who's going to be consulted. This Q here is for quality reviewer. That's not a concept that ITIL has adopted, so I would definitely ignore this in this example. But as you see here, there's only one person accountable for each line. You can only have one person accountable. You'll also notice that you can have several people responsible for a specific activity, because once again, whoever's responsible are the people that are doing the work. So it's possible you can have multiple people responsible, always only one person accountable. Your informed are the people that are on that CC line in your email, and then the consultant people are the people with the knowledge and information that you need to leverage. This is what a RACI chart looks like, for an example of it.
Awesome.
As a part of best practice and implementation, what I have done when creating a RACI is to create it, and then I take it back to a program manager or other stakeholders and say, what do you guys think? And everyone gets to look at it and say, why am I only consulted? Or why am I responsible? I don't even know how to do line number 7. And so it gives everyone the opportunity to see it, because that's also another fail of a RACI. It's just to document it and not share it out. And you come back and say, well, Allison, you're responsible for sending this out to the customer every month. And you say, well, no one ever told me that. Oh, it's in our RACI matrix. And you say, yeah, but I don't even know what that is. I've never seen that. So just a takeaway for you, for your organization, is to create it, and that's great, but everyone needs to see it and everyone needs to understand, okay, for this particular project, I'm only going to be informed, and that's fine with me. Or, oh, they expect me to actually be accountable for this over here. So moving forward, just taking from ITIL, just the concept into implementation, make sure that everyone has seen the RACI matrix. Okay, so that's RACI. Let's see what we have. Okay. Key roles in service management. The process owner. Process owner is accountable for the overall process performance. So if we take a step back, going back to RACI, accountable is also quote unquote the owner. So anytime you hear of an owner, that's the person who's ultimately accountable for whatever we're talking about. So the process owner is accountable for the overall process performance. So incident manager will be accountable for the entire incident management process. A capacity manager will be accountable for the entire capacity management process. Whereas a service owner is accountable for a specific service within an organization, regardless of where the underpinning technology components, process, or professional capabilities reside. So, if we're talking about our bus service, there's a unit that is of the bus company that provides bus service, right? The actual service, not accounting or HR. These are the service owners. They're ultimately accountable for that specific service. They're not accountable for what happens in HR. You hire the wrong people. They're not accountable for the money. They didn't pay for whatever licenses or fees to the county. They're not accountable for um, the procurement of the new seats that we wanted to get. They're accountable specifically for the bus service itself. So process owner is accountable for the process performance. Service owner is accountable for the service itself. Okay. Responsibilities of owners on both ends are to be accountable for the final outcome. So if we go back and think about our RACI, we're talking about accountability in regards to owners. They're accountable for the final outcome. They have end-to-end accountability. So the owners are not allowed to come back and say, well, Johnny he just kind of does whatever he wants. And, everyone knows that Johnny never follows the process and he's a problem. It does not matter. Owners are ultimately accountable for all outcomes. They also are, yes.
Can you have a RACI within a RACI?
A RACI within a RACI.
Yeah. Right?
So
Let's get a little meta.
So what you could do with the RACI is it depends on how you define it, right? So if you define it at the project level, you could have a RACI go end to end for projects. So we have this 18-month long project. You could take the what's in the contract, for instance, and build that into your RACI and map out who's responsible, accountable, consultant, and informed. Then a person who is accountable could create his own RACI to say, hey, I'm accountable for making sure for service delivery, right? I'm accountable for service delivery. I'm going to create a matrix which has me accountable, but has all the different activities that fall under service delivery listed and build that out. So there can definitely be multiple RACIs for each project and sub-project, or function and then sub-function. You could do it that way. You could absolutely do it that way. So if I know that I'm accountable for incident management, I would say, okay, what's covered under incident management? We have 8 different things that fall under incident management. I'm creating a RACI for those 8 things. I'm identifying who's accountable, responsible, consultant, and informed. And that's how I'm going to manage incident management, because ultimately I'm accountable. So you could absolutely